العلم قال الله قال رسوله قال الصحابة هم أولو العرفان. ما الدين نصبك للخلاف سفاهة بين الرسول وبين قول فلان؟
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد. To proceed, the best of speech is the speech of Allah Azza wa Jal, and the best of guidance is the guidance of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the worst of all affairs are those that have been newly added into the religion. Every newly added affair in the religion is an innovation, and every innovation is a misguidance, and every misguidance is in the fire of hell. I ask Allah to save me and you all from innovations, misguidance, and the fire of hell. As you have heard, tonight's topic revolves around a specific chapter in the story of the Prophet Yusuf, عليه السلام. Specifically, the events that occurred when the wife of Al-Aziz attempted to lure him into sin. This story of Yusuf, is one of the stories of the prophets, and there are many that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us in the Quran. What is unique about the story of Yusuf is that Allah Azza wa Jal has almost entirely dedicated an entire chapter to his story. A whole surah almost is dedicated to the story of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. Number one. Number two, that Allah Azza wa Jal has chosen to name this chapter the chapter of what surah? Yusuf. Whereas the story of Musa, for example, alayhi salatu wasalam, was separated in many chapters of the Quran. And not one of these chapters is titled the chapter of Musa. Likewise the story of Isa, likewise the story of Hud, and so on. As for the Prophet Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah Azza wa Jal has made the surah named after him, and it mentions his story in almost totality. Allah Azza wa Jal has begun this story and this surah with mentioning facts about the stories of the Quran. And likewise he has finished this surah with mentioning facts about the stories of the Quran. As if Allah Azza wa Jal is giving us some principles to work with and understanding to guide us as we read these stories. From among these, what is in the beginning of the surah, he said Jalla wa Ala, نَحْنُ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ أَحْسَنَ الْقَصَصِ. Indeed, we narrate to you the best of stories. We take from this ayah that the best stories that were ever told, period, are the stories told to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam by Allah. This book contains Ahsan al-Qasas. Ahsan means what? The most beautiful, the best. So the most beautiful stories and the best of stories are the stories of the Quran. And Allah Azza wa Jal in the end of the surah also mentioned something about these stories. He said, what? لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ عِبْرَةٌ. Indeed, in their stories there was a ibrah. Some of the scholars of tafsir, they said the word ibrah is a reference to that which acts like a gateway from which you pass, or through which you pass from one meaning to the other. So the story is the beginning, and the meanings that it takes you to, and the understanding that it opens for you, and the wisdom that you take from it is what you are being delivered to. As if these stories are what bridges to wisdom, gateways to knowledge. If you understand these two things, it becomes clear to you that the stories of Quran are not simply read for entertainment value, but rather they are what? Stories by which we hope to gain knowledge, wisdom, and depth of understanding. Further, this story is about a prophet. Allah Azza wa Jal said to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, أولئك الذين هداهم الله, or هدى الله فبهداه مقتدي. He said to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam regarding the prophets of old, those are the ones that Allah has guided, so follow in their guidance. Muhammad was told sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to follow in the footsteps of the prophets before him. And we, the Ummah of Muhammad, are commanded with the exact same thing that our Prophet is commanded with. To follow in the footsteps of the prophets of old. When you read the surah of Yusuf, عليه السلام, or any of the stories of the prophets for that matter, what you are trying to walk away with is a model to follow, a life to emulate, role model to take. So you read the story hoping to find in it guidance for your life, wisdom that you can take and apply in your day-to-day life, starting from the moment you hear it. And I feel these particular verses that I have chosen for tonight's topic are very pertinent, especially in our time, and have practical value and immediate applicable benefits that we can start practicing perhaps as soon as we walk out the masjid or even before. The verses surrounding the events that occurred between Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam and the wife of Al-Aziz. Now, without mentioning the whole story of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, we can briefly say, at this stage in his life, he had been living in the home of Al-Aziz for a number of years. And he was no longer a child, but he had become a young man. And all these years he lived as a slave in their home. He was taken as a slave. Although he is originally what? A free man. And at this particular point in the story, Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned right before that, وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ وَاسْتَوَى وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. At this point in the story, Allah mentioned that he has reached his what? His peak, the peak of his strength, the peak of his youth, the peak of his virility, the peak of his bodily strength and the strength of his mind. We granted him at that point, Allah said what? حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا, rule and knowledge. So he was a man that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed upon him wisdom and knowledge. Wisdom by which to rule, and knowledge by which he recognizes the truth of the reality of this life, the truth of the religion of Allah, and the falsehood that others may be upon. And Allah Azza wa Jal also mentioned what وَكَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ, and as such we reward the muhsinin. Meaning this is not something unique to Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. This is something that Allah will grant to anyone who is from the muhsinin. He will grant him حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا, rule and knowledge. Then the story begins mentioning the details of the interaction that occurred between him and the wife of Al-Aziz. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, وراودته التي هو في بيتها عن نفسه وغلقت الأبواب وقالت هيت لك. And the one whom he resided in her home seduced him, enticed him, tried to lure him for himself. In other words, she wanted him to fall into sin with her, to commit a crime with her, the crime of fornication. And she closed all the doors, غَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ, and she closed them well, tightly closed. And she said, I am ready for you. Now, before we begin mentioning some of these benefits, let us understand these circumstances. Number one, he is what? A youth. In other words, he is in the peak of his strength. And in that stage of life where a man is most in need of getting married. And he was single. He did not have a wife. And he was a slave. In other words, her rank is high and his rank is what? Low. And he was a stranger. Nobody knew him. In other words, the shame that usually occurs in a man's heart when his family is around, and sometimes that shame stops you from doing the wrong things simply because you know your family is around, in the same neighborhood, same area, this guy could hear, your uncle could see, your aunt could hear what you have done. That shame doesn't exist. To pull him back from the sin, to protect him from falling. Number 5, the woman is beautiful, the wife of Al-Aziz. And she is famous and wealthy. And further, she is not simply available, she is pushy. And not only that, he did not have to put any work into this sin, rather she did all the work for him. She closed the doors, this and that. It was a total surprise for him, and she said, I'm ready for you. How many factors are in place to make him fall into sin? And not only that, she's using 2 strategies to lure him into sin. The strategy of the carrot and the stick. You know what I'm talking about? Fear and hope. In other words, if he does what she wants, she will honor him more, treat him kinder, and give him of the dunya more than he already has. And if he does not, then she threatens him and could harm him and could do things to him, and so on and so forth. So all these reasons combined were present to make that sin happen. And yet, as we know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected him. And he did not fall into the sin. So what we're going to discuss tonight, inshaAllah, are the things that are in place, the things that were practiced, that stopped this sin from happening and were the reason for the protection of Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam, that Allah protected him from this fitna. Now, before we begin discussing this, we can highlight a point, that no matter your rank with Allah, how close you are to Him, you have to be tested. This was what? A test from Allah. And these tests from Allah Azza wa Jal, for those that He loves, He will grant them to pass these tests, as the saying goes, with flying colors. And then it becomes a badge of honor that they will carry for the rest of eternity. Yusuf, he passed this test, and it became an honor for him in the dunya, as we shall see. And it became an honor for him after his death. A whole story of the Quran dedicated to Yusuf, being read in the masajid across the globe. And it is an honor for him in the akhirah and rank with Allah. So recognize this fact, that Allah tests His slaves, even those who are close to Him. In fact, they may be tested more. And that even if you try to stay away from the fitan, from the trials, and from the sins, and from places where harm can come to you, if Allah Azza wa Jal has destined you to see a trial, a test, it will come to you, even if you are hiding from it. The story continues. قَالَ مَعَاذَ اللَّهِ. He said, the refuge of Allah is sought. The scholars, they mention that this is the first of a number of things that was the reason that Yusuf was saved on that day and did not fall into sin. That he sought the refuge of Allah Azza wa Jalla. And they mention that likewise, any time any of us faces a fitna, faces a trial, you find yourself dealing with some kind of temptation to sin, your first step should be what? You seek the refuge of Allah. You say, Ma'ad Allah. You say, A'udhu billah min dhalik. Seek Allah's refuge from that. Oh Allah, save me from such and such. Oh Allah, I seek your refuge from the fitan. In fact, our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to seek Allah's refuge from the fitan before they occurred. Not just when they occurred and they were facing it, before they occurred. He would seek Allah's refuge from all kinds of fitan. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His sunnah is filled with dua. That if you practice and employ that dua and make it part of your daily worship, that you make that dua, then you are pretty much protected from all these fitan by the permission of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And notice how he didn't say A'udhu billah, he said Ma'ad Allah. As if he is not just making the dua, but he is also admonishing her with a reminder. As if saying to her, Fear Allah, I seek His refuge from you. So this shows us another way by which to escape the fitna. That if the fitna involves people, you remind them to fear Allah. And you give them an admonishment by which they are expected to open their eyes and come back to their senses and walk away from that fitna. The rest of the ayah shows the same. He said, إِنَّهُ رَبِّي أَحْسَنَ مَثْوَايَ. Indeed, He is my master. He has made my lodgings generous. Who is He talking about here? Al-Aziz. Ahsan. This is the correct opinion, inshaAllah ta'ala, from the opinions of the scholars of tafsir, that the word Rabbi here is not a reference to Allah Jalla wa Ala. Rather, it is a reference to His master, meaning in slavery. He was a slave purchased by Al-Aziz, so he was referring to Al-Aziz. This is common usage in the Arabic language, and it seems that in the time of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam it was common as well. He reminded her of who? Her husband. So he reminded her first of Allah, ma'ad Allah. Then he said, Innahu Rabbi, reminded her of who? Of her husband. And a woman who may not fear Allah, at least might fear her husband. Then he reminded her of something else. He said, Ahsana mathway. He has made my lodgings generous. Yani the way that He has set me up to stay in His home was very generous. I'm not being treated like a slave. I'm being treated with kindness. I'm being treated as if I'm a son. You want me to betray Him? After he did that. And this shows us one of the qualities of those who escape from sins is that they are people of gratitude. One of the things that saves you from falling into sins is to be a grateful person. Yusuf was grateful to Al-Aziz, and even in that moment of being tempted, he remembered the debt of gratitude he owes to Al-Aziz all these years that he has honored him in his home, and entrusted him in his home, and entrusted him with his family. You want me to betray the man who has been kind to me for years? Then he said what? إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الظَّالِمُونَ. Indeed, the transgressors do not succeed. إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الظَّالِمُونَ. This is an ayah to memorize. A general principle to live by. Remember it. And always keep it at the forefront of your mind. Anytime you see a transgressor, remember this ayah. إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الظَّالِمُونَ. Indeed, the transgressors never succeed. Whether they are rich, whether they are powerful, whether they are with allies, whether they have the connections, the transgressors will never succeed. They are always doomed to fail. So Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam here showed us another point. How his knowledge, and we spoke a little while ago about he was given knowledge, about the fact that he was given knowledge, how his knowledge has come to save him at this point, where he recognizes principles of knowledge, such as the principle that transgression is always going to lead to what? Failure. If I transgress against my master and I desecrate the honor of his household, I will never succeed. And this highlights another point. That fornication is transgression, regardless of the status of the woman involved. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, a young man, a youth, came to him. A man that was trialed with the fitna of lust. He came to the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He said, Ya Rasulullah, idhan li fi zina. He said, O Messenger of Allah, grant me permission to fornicate. This is a very serious thing, right? Who would come to the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam with such a request? Must be a youth who is what? Really suffering, right? The situation in his chest and what he's going through inside of him must be what? Extremely difficult. Otherwise he would not go to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam with such a request, seeking that kind of a permission. He came to the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba were sitting there. And he said that. The Sahaba, their reaction was very different. The Messenger ﷺ brought him close. And he said to him, do you have a mother? He said, yes. He said, do you like it for your mother? And would you like that your mother fornicates? The man said, ransom to you be my father. No. Yani he had great respect for the Messenger ﷺ, but his what? His desire was overcoming him, was beating him. He was not able to control it. So the Messenger ﷺ came to him from which angle? The angle of making his mind work. To look past his desire. Because if a man is focused only on his desire, that means this is the only thing he's looking at. He's not going to be able to escape it until his mind can be expanded and he can look otherwhere. And he can see other things, he can see consequences, the harms, understand the societal effects. When he said that, the Messenger ﷺ said to him, likewise, people do not like it for their mothers. And in other words, if this woman that you are thinking about is somebody's mother, then you're going to be transgressing against somebody and harming someone in a way that you do not accept to be harmed. Then he asked him, do you have a sister? He said, yes. He said, do you like it for your sister? He said, ransom to you be my father. No. He said, likewise, the people do not like it for their sisters. Then he asked them aunt, so on and so forth, different types of women relatives. And all of this, the man is saying what? No, no, no. And the Prophet is saying, likewise, people do not like it for them. Until the Messenger ﷺ saw that the point had been delivered home. And the brother had understood that this is transgression and this woman is either somebody's sister, or somebody's daughter, or somebody's aunt, or somebody's mother. And he's going to be transgressing either way he goes. Then he put his hand on his chest ﷺ and he made dua for him, asking Allah to purify his heart, to forgive his sins. And after that, the young man walked away completely healed. And he was seen thereafter never raising his eyes from the ground. In other words, when the heart is healed, where are you going to find the eyes? On the ground. Whereas if the heart is filled with desires, this is when the eyes, they start to what? Roam. Look all around. So the point we're making is that Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam, he looked at this angle, the angle of transgression, that he would be a transgressor if he committed this act and agreed with this woman. Then Allah Azza wa Jalla said, وَلَقَدْ هَمَّتْ بِهِ وَهَمَّ بِهَا لَوْلَا رَأَى بُرْهَانَ رَبِّهِ. And indeed, she had made the intention regarding him. We know her intention is to what? To sin. He said, and he made the intention regarding her, had it not been for the fact that he saw the proof of his Lord. For the fact that he had seen the proof of his Lord. Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam would have fallen into the same thing, which is to have the ham, to have the intention to fall into that sin, if it were not for the fact that he had seen the proof of his Lord. What is meant by this here? That the knowledge Allah Azza wa Jal had given and granted to Yusuf protected him from even the bad intention. Yusuf was protected by the proofs of al-Iman that he had learned, by the strength of his faith, by the study of his religion, from even having the ham, the intention to sin. This shows us the purity of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. Not only were his actions pure and he did not fall into the sin, but also his intentions were what? Pure. So what does it look like when somebody seeks the refuge of Allah, recognizes that transgression leads to failure, and remembers the favors of others, and he is grateful, and he has iman and knowledge? What does that look like? If you wanted to see it, what does it look like? Allah said, وَاسْتَبَقَ الْبَابِ. There's a part we're going to come back to, but I just wanted to highlight this point, that there's a way that such a person is expected to act. He said subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَاسْتَبَقَ الْبَابِ, and they raced towards the door. Now the wife of Al-Aziz, she had locked the doors, right? Yusuf may not have known that. So he's racing towards what? The door. Why is he racing towards the door? To escape what? The fitna. Not to escape the woman. She can't force him to do anything. But to escape the fitna. In other words, he did not sit with her and say, Fear Allah, this is not good, what you're doing is not right, and this and that. He raced to the door. He didn't say, oh, I'm the son of a prophet and the grandson of a prophet and the great-grandson of a prophet. I'm not going to fall into this. I've lived a clean youth. Allah has answered my dua. I have so much knowledge. I'm not going to worry about this. La. What did he do? He raced. He ran. How hard did he run? He ran so hard that when she was chasing him and she grabbed his qamis from behind, his qamis tore. وَقَدَّتْ قَمِيصَهُ مِن دُبُرٍ, Allah said. She tore his qamis from behind. That's how hard he was running. يعني, let go, I'm running. We take from this a benefit. That if a man wants to escape the fitna and not fall into the fitna of any sort, any temptation, do not be in its vicinity, run as far away from it as you can. Whatever that fitna is, eliminate its presence in your life. If you cannot eliminate its presence, eliminate your presence. Either the fitna should move or you should move. Some of the scholars of old, when an innovator came to him and he said, I want to have a discussion with you, what did he say to him? He said, not even half a word. Either you leave or I leave. Why? Because that discussion can become what? A fitna. He's an innovator. What do you expect him to teach you? How to become more of a person of the sunnah? No. He's going to share with you the things that confused him, that led him astray. How do you know you're going to be firm? That you're going to stay on the path? That you're not going to be confused? You don't know that. So, he said to him what? Either you leave or I leave. And if you don't leave, I'm going to leave. I will remove myself. Sulaiman alayhi salatu wassalam, Allah mentioned his story in the Quran with the horses. He said, إِذْ عُرِضَ عَلَيْهِ بِالْعَشِيِّ الصَّافِنَاتِ الْجِيَادِ. In the time of dusk, yani the evening, horses were displayed to him. Beautiful horses, war horses, the like of which that kings would love to look at and examine and see what they want to prepare in terms of armies and so on and so forth. فقال إني أحببت حب الخير عن ذكر ربي حتى توارت بالحجاب. He said, I preferred the love of good, يعني the worldly matters, over the remembrance of my Lord until it fell under the horizon. It here is the sun, the horizon meaning the sun set. In other words, he kept gazing at the horses until the salah time was out. He forgot about the salah. Why? What made him forget? Looking at the horses. Meaning the horses were what for him? A fitna. Now what's the principle? You either eliminate the presence of the fitna in your life, or you eliminate your presence. So what did Sulaiman say? رُدُّوهَا عَلَيْهِ. Return them to me, yani the horses. What does he want to do? فَطَفِقَ مَسْحًا بِالسُّوقِ وَالْأَعْنَاقِ. He slaughtered the horses. Yani to give them away as sadaqah meat. Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam cannot eliminate her presence. He can't tell her, leave this room. Fear Allah, go put on hijab, something. No. But what can he do? He can run. So he ran. Now before this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentioned another reason for the salvation of Yusuf and how he was saved from this fitna. He said, Jalla wa ala, كَذَلِكَ لِنَصْرِفَ عَنْهُ السُّوءَ وَالْفَحْشَاءَ إِنَّهُ مِنْ عِبَادِنَا الْمُخْلَصِينَ. This is one of the recitations. Another recitation also, عشرية, meaning that is among the 10 recitations. إِنَّهُ مِنْ عِبَادِنَا الْمُخْلِصِينَ. So مخلصين with the fatha, مخلصين with the kasra. Both are proper recitations. Allah said as such, so that we will turn away from him evil and filth. He is from our slaves that are mukhlasin, from our slaves that are mukhlisin. Mukhlas, chosen. Mukhlis, sincere. The two meanings are very connected. You will never become from the chosen until you are from the sincere. This is why the scholars, they've coined the phrase, they said, Al-ikhlasu tariqul khalas. Al-ikhlas, sincerity, is the path to salvation. If you want to be saved by Allah, then be from the sincere. Be from those who are sincere to Allah Azza wa Jal. Make your intention for Allah, and Allah Azza wa Jal will bring you close to Him and make you from the chosen. And if Allah makes you from the chosen, Allah will grant you knowledge. And if Allah grants you knowledge, that will be a protection for you against fitan. This is how it builds up. And this is how the progression looks like. Yusuf was, alayhi salatu wasalam, was from the mukhlisin, so he became from the mukhlasin. And so Allah Azza wa Jal granted him hukman wa ilma. And because he saw the burhan of his Lord, he was saved from the fitna of the wife of Al-Aziz. Does this make sense, or do I need to repeat this? I can repeat this again if it needs more clarification. Repeat it or keep going? Fine. We repeat it again. Mukhlisin with a kasra means the sincere. Without sincerity, Allah does not accept any good deeds. If a man performs a good deed without sincerity, he wants other people to see him, he wants to show off, he wants people's attention or the like, he wants a reputation, this is not accepted by Allah. There's no reward for it, not in the dunya, nor in the akhirah. So for a man to come close to Allah with good deeds, and that's the only way to come close to Allah, with good deeds, those good deeds must be built on a foundation of what? Ikhlas, sincerity. They have to be only for Allah. Your heart has to be only dedicating these deeds to your Lord Jalla wa'ala. So based on this recitation, we understand that the key to the success of Yusuf and the key to why Allah saved him is because he is from the sincere. His good deeds actually were devoted to Allah alone without partners. And so Allah rewarded him for his good deeds. What are these rewards? Based on the other recitation, Al-Mukhlasin, Allah chose him. He became from the chosen. Yani Allah selected him from amongst the slaves for a particular station, a rank, a status. In other words, if you want to be special to Allah, you make sure that you show Allah that Allah is the most special to you. In other words, you are sincere to Him. No one is equal to Allah in your heart. You are sincere. Then Allah Azza wa Jal chooses you and raises you above others. So Yusuf was raised because of his ikhlas. What other gifts did Allah give the mukhlisin? Knowledge and wisdom. آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا وَكَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. And as such we reward the people of ihsan. What are the rewards? That Allah Azza wa Jal gives you the proofs of iman. Your faith is based on proof, based on evidence. It fills your heart and you have no doubts regarding the words of Allah, regarding the truthfulness of His messengers. It fills your heart and you have no shakiness. You become very firm, as if you see Jannah and the hellfire with your heart. And then when the fitan come, the fitan what? They don't shake you. These are from the gifts of Allah to those who are sincere. Is that clear now? Then Allah Azza wa Jalla said, and they raced towards the door. وَقَدَّتْ قَمِيصَهُ مِنْ دُبُرٍ. And she tore his qamis from behind. وَأَلْفَيَا سَيِّدَهَا لَدَى الْبَابِ. And they found her master, يعني her husband, right at the door. This is proof that a woman's master is who? Her husband. In other words, a woman should treat her husband not as an equal, but rather as what? As a superior. This is from the mistakes that women commonly fall into when they are lacking in this area. That they will treat their husbands as equals. Her and the husband, same footing. This is wrong. The husband is the master of the household. Some women, they're even worse than that. They treat the husband like he's what? And she's the superior. He's the woman, she's wearing the pants. This is even worse. The correct understanding and the correct setup is the man is the boss and the woman is the follower. He's the leader, she's the follower. And this shows you, ikhwan, something. How obedience to Allah saves you from trouble. If her husband was at the door, what does that mean? Potentially, he would have what? Unlocked the door and entered. If a man had fallen into sin with her, as her husband is unlocking the doors and entering, what would the husband find? A man sinning with his wife. How do you expect Al-Aziz to react when he sees his wife in that affair? How do you think that man's situation is going to be? He will probably hang him from a tree, right? Allah Jalla wa Ala not only saved Yusuf from Al-Aziz in his wrath, but He saved Yusuf from having his honor tarnished and his reputation being touched with any harm. He saved his name. He saved his deen above all. Obedience to Allah Azza wa Jal saves you in all ways from every harm, even harms that you do not know existed. Did Yusuf know that her husband was right at the door? He didn't. When he was racing to the door, did he not know? Al-Faya, they found him there, right at the door. Now, what did the woman say? This is another interesting thing. قالت ما جزاء من أراد بأهلك سوءا إلا أن يسجن أو عذاب أليم. She said, what is the punishment for the one who intended harm to your family? She said, to your family. She didn't say to me. She said, to your family. Why did she pick that word? To your family. Hi, ikhwan. Some of the brothers there are smiling. I guess they understand. Yalla, we want somebody to express that understanding to us. Why did she say to him, your family, instead of saying to me?
Hopefully it's to get Aziz more furious.
Exactly, to play on his feelings. When she says to him, your family, now he feels like a sense of what? Pride and protection. He has to protect his family, defend his honor, so on and so forth. She didn't say to me, she said to your family. What is the punishment of one who intended harm to your family except for being imprisoned or a painful torture? Why didn't she say or be killed? She's still interested in Yusuf. She doesn't want him killed, but she wants him punished. And this shows, ikhwan, that partners in sin cannot be trusted. She sold him in a second. All this love, and I'm ready for you, and so on and so forth. I've locked the doors. Where did it go? She's now suggesting sentences from either imprisonment or painful torture. Where did it go? It was never there. People who partner with you to sin, they are using you. You to them are secondary. You don't matter. You're just something for them to have fun. If somebody says, come on, let's go do such and such, and they want to take you somewhere sinful, they don't want you to have fun. Don't believe that for a second. They want to use you to have fun with you. And if you destroy your life in that activity, they don't care. If you end up completely destroyed because of that activity, that doesn't bother them one bit. The people of sin are users. Unlike those who want you to cooperate with them in obedience to Allah. They want you to benefit, and they want to benefit from your benefit. They know that if Allah rewards you, that they will be rewarded too. So they want you to get the reward of Allah. الْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. The believing men and the believing women, they are truly allies to one another. Unlike the people of sin and disobedience. She said, what is the punishment for one who intended ill for your family except for an imprisonment or a painful torture? Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam defended himself. He said, هِيَ رَاوَدَتْنِي عَنْ نَفْسِي. He said, she seduced me regarding myself. She tried to tempt me regarding sin. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, وَشَهِدَ شَاهِدٌ مِّنْ أَهْلِهَا. And a witness testified from her family. And this is a very powerful situation. Someone from her family is speaking with words of wisdom and fairness. This is tremendous. Usually, a man from the woman's family speaking about something he has not seen, what would he say? Something he has not seen, what would he say? Fulana and her slave. What would the man usually say? A member of her family. Huh? Kill this slave. Who wants to listen to what he has to say? This is a filthy man. Tried to harm her. They would take her word without even questioning. The word of a free woman, the wife of Al-Aziz, a famous, rich, beautiful woman, married to Al-Aziz. What does she need with a slave? But Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah was on his side. So even a witness from her family would be made to speak the truth. Allah would put the truth on his tongue. So he said what? This witness from her family. He said, إِن كَانَ قَمِيصُهُ قُدَّ مِنْ قُبُلٍ فَصَدَقَتْ. They put her first. If his qamis is torn from the front, then she is telling the truth. صَدَقَتْ. وَهُوَ مِنَ الْكَاذِبِينَ. And he is from the liars. Notice this here. She told the truth, and he's from the liars. وَإِن كَانَ قَمِيصُهُ قُدَّ مِن دُبُرٍ. And if his shirt is torn, his qamis is torn from the back, فَكَذَبَتْ. And she told a lie. وَهُوَ مِنَ الصَّادِقِينَ. Notice here how this man testifying and offering a way to rule between them offered wisdom and fairness and used the description for her indicating one incident and a description for him indicating a habit. For her, sadaqat, she told the truth. He didn't say, she's from the truthful. Just she told the truth once. In the other event, kadabat, she told a lie. Now she's from the liars. But when it came to Yusuf, he gave him a description. من الصادقين من الكاذبين. Why? لماذا?
He's a prophet. He doesn't lie.
Does this man know he's a prophet? طيب. Now.
To make it seem not as bad for her if she lies.
طيب, but why not make it seem good for her when she tells the truth? Try again.
Might have happened before.
Might have doesn't really provide us with evidence. We need something based on evidence, huh? Now, Hisham.
She's the one who accused him.
To preserve her honor and the status.
Well, why would he make him from the Sadiqeen? Why not just say فَصَدَقَ?
To free himself.
Say again?
To free himself from the allegation they gave him.
No.
That's why they seem good for me to clarify.
No.
When it comes to such acts, I think mostly is kind of played around by men compared to the females.
طيب. Allahu A'lam, the reason that Yusuf was given a description, and as for her, only her action was described, is because Yusuf, as we know from the Sunnah, was given half of the beauty of mankind. Anyone who saw him, he would recognize that this youth was what? Unlike any human they've ever seen in their life. Anyone who saw him would immediately recognize that his beauty was what? Nothing they've ever seen the like of before. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ, he told us, the people of Jannah, when they enter Jannah, they're going to be on the beauty of who? Yusuf alayhi salam. So, the man who is bearing witness recognizes, I'm talking about Yusuf, and she's a woman. He's this beautiful. So if she's telling this, she lied. That doesn't make her a liar, but she felt a temptation because of the fact that this man is like this. And if he refused, despite the fact that he's a youth, unmarried, single, stranger, slave, she's a master, he's afraid of her punishment, and he is desiring of her reward. And she tried this. That makes him not just a man who told the truth, but he makes him a man who is always with the truthful. The other scenario. If she is telling the truth, that means she was defending her honor and she tore his shirt from the front, right? And a woman defending her honor, does that make her from the truthful? No, she just told the truth. Every woman does this, she defends her honor, whether she's from the truthful or not. So she does not deserve extra special praise and a rank for defending her honor. She just told the truth. And as for him to attack a woman's honor, and she is his master, she's his owner, he's a slave, and he is ungrateful to his owners, and he is betraying them, and he is unjust and unfair. And not just that, he says, She's tempting me. That man must be from the liars. So either situation, he deserves a title. Because of the circumstances surrounding this. Is this clear? Huh? Everyone gets it? Shall I repeat?
Yes.
Repeat. Fine. Yusuf received one of two titles based on the scenario. If it's torn from the front, one title. Torn from the back, another title. Torn from the front, it means she was defending herself, he was trying to attack her honor, and not only so, Yusuf accused her of trying to seduce him. Which means that he committed several crimes. Number one, he lied against her. He lied a lie that would normally not be believed. Who would think a mistress would try to seduce her slave? Number three, that he was ungrateful to his master. Number four, that he was betraying his master. So in other words, he was committing a large number of crimes in addition to attempting to rape her. This makes him necessarily from who? The liars. He deserves a title. He didn't just lie, but he's from the liars. And if it's the opposite, that it was torn from the back, he also deserves a title. That he's from the truthful. Because he resisted the temptation. That she tried to fight him to make him fall into sin, and he still resisted. Because he's a youth, and youth are known to have stronger desire. Because he's single, and it's known that a single man is more in need, and so on and so forth. All of these things that are pushing him to sin, and yet he resisted. This man must be from the truthful. He deserves a title. Clear? As for her, either situation, she doesn't deserve a title. If she has fallen into this and she's lying to defend herself and her honor and husband right there and so on and so forth, she lied. Doesn't make her from the liars. And if she's truthful and she defended her honor and the man was trying to attack her, and if she's truthful and she was trying to defend her honor and the man had attacked her, then she told the truth. Doesn't make her from the truthful. Mother? Alhamdulillah. Now, this shows us, and I want to finish with this benefit, how Allah Azza wa Jal saved even the honor of Yusuf. Not only was he saved from her husband being right there at the door, but Allah Azza wa Jal also saved his honor when she accused him of attempting to harm her. And she lied against him. Allah made someone from her family speak up with the truth. So when her husband saw, فَلَمَّا رَأَى قَمِيصَهُ قُدَّ مِن دُبُرٍ قَالَ إِنَّهُ مِن كَيْدِكُنْ. When her husband saw that his shirt was torn from behind, he said, this is from your plotting. And he is talking to her. كَيْدِ كُنَّ نُونَ النِّسَى. This is from your plotting, O women folk. And you plotted against Yusuf. In other words, in her husband's eyes, who is the liar? Huh? She is the liar. And who is truthful? Yusuf. So Yusuf's honor was what? Saved. Now this story, Ikhwan, this particular part of the story has other dimensions to it. The fitna didn't stop. The women in the city started talking about this. And then she made them come, she hosted them, she gave them food, so on and so forth. And she made Yusuf walk in front of them. When they saw him, they were amazed by his beauty and they started cutting their hands. And then they started tempting him as well. They all wanted to sin. And all wanted to invite him to disobey Allah Azza wa Jal. And so Yusuf now had not just one woman to fend off, but a number of women from the top women of society. From the richest women of the society, the most famous of the women of society, and the most beautiful of the women of the society. Those who come in the company and sit with the wife of Al-Aziz. And it came to that point again where it was a fitna for him. So he prayed to Allah again and he said, إِلَّا تَصْرِفْ عَنِّي كَيْدَهُنَّ أَصْبُ إِلَيْهِنْ وَأَكُنْ مِنَ الْجَاهِلِينَ. And if you do not deflect and turn away from me, they're plotting. I will lean towards them and then I will become from the ignorant. So Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam escaped the fitna not just this first time, but he escaped it again later, when it was a number of women all tempting him. And he said words that were truthful. He said to Allah, رَبِّ السِّجْنُ أَحَبُّ إِلَيْهِ مِمَّا يَدْعُونَنِي إِلَيْهِ. Oh Allah, the prison is more beloved to me than what they are inviting me to. And it wasn't just empty talk. It was true. Because when they finally decided to put him in prison, he did not buckle and say, okay, I'll do whatever you want. He went to prison. And he stayed in prison for years. Never shaking on that point, never changing. And he stayed true to what he wanted to do, which is obey Allah Azza wa Jalla in that regard and stay away from the fitna. These ikhwan are a number of keys to surviving the fitna. No matter how strong and powerful and raging the fitna may be, and how tremendous the motivation normally would be inside of you, if you follow these principles that were laid out here in the story of Yusuf, Allah will save you from it. Inshallah, we will stop here for the adhan, and after the adhan I would like for maybe one or two of you to summarize for us what are these principles that we took from these ayat that by which a man can save himself from the fitna. Wallahu a'lam wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Jazakumullah. Now, who will summarize for us these points, these principles by which a man can escape the fitna?
I'll try.
Now,
First of all, you mentioned that there are two things, guidance and knowledge, that Yusuf alayhi salam gained from Allah. And
طيب, so we can summarize this and say that gaining knowledge, having knowledge is a reason by which Allah saves the slave from the fitna. Correct? We agree with this, ikhwan? طيب. And the proof from these ayat? وَلَقَدْ هَمَّ بِهَا لَوْلَا أَن رَأَى بُرْهَانَ رَبِّهِ. He saw the proofs of his Lord. He was a man that had seen the proofs of Allah in the creation and so on and so forth in the religion. His heart was filled with iman. Jazakallah khair. That's one. What else?
and also knocked me off balance. So the guidance, the knowledge that we talked about, and also Yusuf was a truthful person. And you mentioned also to escape the fitna. Either you leave the fitna goes away, or you remove yourself from the fitna.
Ahsant. This is also another principle. That you have to have distance between you and the fitna. If the fitna comes, either put the fitna away, or if the fitna is not something you can move, you move yourself out of it. And what is the proof for this from the ayat? And they raced towards the door. Yusuf was racing towards the door to leave her behind, so she would not be a fitna for him. This principle, ya ikhwan, if we used it today, we would escape so many fitan. So many fitan. Think about it. If somebody tried to confuse you about the religion, and how many are these people? They are everywhere. Or try to pressure you into something in the religion that you are not comfortable with, and also how many are these people? And you simply race away from them. Delete their number, block them on WhatsApp, etc., etc. Unfriend them on this platform or that platform. How many headaches would you be done with? Huh? A very large number of headaches, right? And you would close the door of fitna. You run away from it. Put distance between you and the fitna. This can be applied with every type of fitna. Whether it's in wealth, whether it's in women, whether it's in the deen, whether it's in fame. Any door of fitna can be closed using this principle. Race away from it. Do you have more?
Well, steadfastness.
Steadfastness?
Yes, to be, because Yusuf, you said, according to the ayahs that you read, that he kept on that track. Like asking Allah to remove the fitna away from him with the winning.
To have strength. We've seen this in Yusuf's reaction in more than one way. Number one, his first reaction to her was Ma'ad Allah, with shock. The refuge of Allah is sought. He didn't say to her, what are you trying to say? What do you mean? Maybe I'm misunderstanding you. No. His first reaction was what? Ma'ad Allah. A very strong reaction. It was so strong that later on, when the other women saw him and they had the reaction that they had, she said to them, وَلَقَدْ رَاوَدْتُهُ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ فَاسْتَعْصَمْ. And I had seduced him, I had tried to tempt him for himself, and he refused with strength. Ista'sam, what does that mean? يعني أبى بقوة, رفض بقوة. With strength he refused and he rejected my offer, my advances. So this is also from the reasons by which a person is saved from the fitna. If somebody comes to you and he tries to tempt you to do something wrong, and your first reaction is like, man, I'm not sure about this. What are you basically saying to them?
Convince me more.
Convince me more. Huh? Try a different way. This is not working with me. But if you say to the person, A'udhu billah, are you mad? The person starts to feel what? Huh? They're going to feel like you're a lost cause. There's no way this guy is going to work with me. No, so forget it. Pretend that he's saying anything. So the strength of Yusuf's reaction, alayhi salatu wasalam, was also a reason that Allah saved him from the fitna. Like we have three now. Who can give us more? Now. Sincerity. Allah Azza wa Jal said about Yusuf, كذلك لنصرف عنه السوء والفحشاء إنه من عبادنا المخلصين. Yusuf is from the mukhlisin, the people of sincerity. Those who perform good deeds only seeking the face of Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah saves them. Allah protects them. Allah gives them strength in the face of the fitan. This is a reminder for us all to check our intentions, to refocus our intentions, to retrain our intentions on the fact that we are doing this only for the sake of Allah. to renew and revive our intentions. Because sometimes acts of worship can become habits. And we tend to forget why we're doing them. Maybe a long time ago you used to think about going to Salat al-Fajr because you want to be from those who will be given complete and perfect light on the Day of Judgment. But then through the years, I'm just going to Fajr. And you forgot about that hadith. So reviving the intention and renewing it brings back the reasons you were doing things. I'm doing this because I want to be from those people who go to Salat al-Fajr on time because they will have complete and perfect light on the Day of Judgment. بشر المشائين إلى الصلوات في الظلم بنور التام يوم القيامة أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. جزاك الله خير. We have 4. Who can give us more? Now.
He's grateful. He's grateful.
Gratitude. Yusuf's gratitude motivated him to repay the goodness and the kindness with like and equal kindness and goodness. He said, مَعَاذَ اللَّهِ إِنَّهُ رَبِّي أَحْسَنَ مَثْوَايَ. My master has made generous my lodgings. He has beautified my hospitality. He hosted me graciously. What should I repay him with? Is basically what he is saying. By betraying him and his family? Desecrating his honor? Obviously not. So from gratitude, Yusuf was what? Guided to the right reaction. عليه الصلاة والسلام. We have 5. Who can give us more? Now.
Transgressors never win.
Having that kind of knowledge, that fornication, for example, is a type of transgression, and transgressors always lose. Transgressors always lose. This is a principle of knowledge. But a man who is ignorant, does not study, will he know this? Huh? No. So having that knowledge is a reason for a man to be protected. By knowing these principles, just like you know the back of your hand, when you see a situation in front of you where one of these principles apply, you will not be shaken. Because you are firm in that knowledge. إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الظَّالِمُونَ. Indeed, the transgressors never succeed, he said. عليه الصلاة والسلام. طيب, we have 6 now, and we seem to have saved the best for the last. Now?
التضحية هو ضحى بنفسه أن يدخل السجن على أن يستسلم.
Anyone else?
He was granted wisdom.
He was granted knowledge and wisdom. We've touched upon this.
Also making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
This is it. We should have actually started with this point. That he asked Allah to save him. This is the beginning of him being saved from the fitna. He said, Ma'ad Allah, the refuge of Allah is sought. And is sought. What does sought mean? The refuge of Allah is being asked for. He's asking Allah to grant him refuge, to protect him, to keep him safe, to turn away from him the evil and the harm. He's asking Allah for something that only Allah controls. No one can protect you except for Allah. If Allah does not protect you, there is no protection for you. And if Allah Azza wa Jal gives you protection, nothing can reach you. So you begin with asking Allah Azza wa Jal. Anytime there's a fitna in your life, you ask Allah, the one who controls the heavens and the earth and everything in between them. He is the one that can save you from that. This is the 7th of these points. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka wa an'am ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma anfa'na bima 'allamtana wa 'allimna ma yanfa'una wa zidna 'ilman tanfa'una bihi. Allahumma ati nufusana taqwaha wa zakkiha anta khayru man zakkaha أنت وليها ومولاها. اللهم أعنا ولا تعن علينا وانصرنا ولا تنصر علينا وامكر لنا ولا تمكر علينا واهدنا ويسر الهدى إلينا وانصرنا اللهم على من بغى علينا. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وتبارك اسمك وعز جارك وجل ثناؤك وتقدست أسماؤك لا إله إلا أنت نسألك اللهم أن تغفر جميع ذنوبنا ما قدمنا وما أخرنا وما أسررنا وما أعلنا وما أنت أعلم به منا. وصل اللهم وسلم وبارك وأنعم على عبدك ونبيك محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين.